Thank you so much to our Patreon sponsors today, Blackjack and Dr. Dread. Also, thank you so much to our new patron, You're a Noob. Hello everyone, my name is AndrewAJT. Thank you for joining us again this week. I had a pretty weird week because the internet was down for quite a bit of it. We had the tropical storm, and a few hours after the storm had gone, the internet went out, and it was out for several days, so that was kind of annoying, but it happens, with the storm and everything. I don't know why it happened afterwards, but oh well, it's back now, so nothing really to worry about. And today I want to talk about the 5 things Jagex has done really well. Now, of course, I'm critical of Jagex at times when they screw things up, but occasionally they really do get things right, and they don't get enough credit for them, so I do want to discuss a few of them today. Of course, there's more than 5. Maybe if this video does well, I'll make a part 2. And these will be in no particular order. I just want to talk about some things that people don't really point out or they just take for granted that Jagex did, which have all really benefited RuneScape as a whole. So the first one is simply the release of OldSchool RuneScape itself, which was never really a sure thing. I mean, if we go back to 2012, we had the Evolution of Combat being released, which I think most people would say was a mistake. It was not a very popular update, even though it has been improved since, because it even drove me away from the game for the first time. I mean, I had taken breaks, but I had never really just stopped playing RuneScape for that long, and EOC pretty much did that for me. And then I came back for Old School, of course. But there had been calls for an older version of the game to be released long before 2013 and EOC in 2012, and it never really seemed like it was going to happen. So when it actually did happen, it was really quite amazing, and I was very surprised, and I don't know, I guess it takes some guts to release an older version of your game, because to me that's almost saying, like, yeah, we're working so hard on this new game, but people don't like it as much, and we're just going to put an old version out and swallow our pride. I don't know, that's just how I see it. Maybe they thought about it totally differently, but it really worked out, and probably worked out better than just not doing EOC, because I think I like Old School RuneScape better than I would like RuneScape 3 if EOC never happened, so it really was a good decision on their end. So the second thing may seem obvious, but really isn't quite the case for all games, and that is Jagex's decision to support content creators as much as they have. Jagex has done a pretty good job of this, and we might take that for granted, but if you look at other gaming communities, that is not something that is for sure. I mean, there are gaming developers where they don't really do much to support their community for the game. They don't really host events or anything, and maybe they'll even give creators issues with content ID claims or copyright or stuff like that, and really just be annoying for those communities rather than supportive. And to me that's really dumb, because it means less content creators are going to play that game for their viewers, and when YouTubers or streamers play a game for their audience, then that just makes more people want to play that game. For example, I've seen Let's Plays or speedruns of games, and it made me think, wow, I want to go play that game, so that's what I do, and that's how I find out about the game. But if that type of stuff is being discouraged, then that wouldn't happen. This all seems very obvious to me, but if you look around, it's not always the case with every video game developer or community. You could argue that Jagex focuses too much on content creators sometimes, or cares too much about what they think, but that's a much better problem to have than the alternative. Number 3 is the Old School RuneScape polling system, which is very unique. Most games don't have anything like this. So for new content to be added to the game, we know it needs 75% approval in the polls, which is quite a high number. That means that really a very strong majority has to want something. I mean, you would think it would just be over half, but 3/4 is a very solid number that you can feel good about something being added to the game if it passes that. And they also do developer blogs or even just surveys to get people's opinions before the official poll is released, so you can feel pretty good about the final product being what people actually want if they had to answer in a yes or no question. They have made it pretty convenient to vote in the polls as well, and you can't just make new accounts and vote right away, so there is some integrity to it as well. The only improvement I could think of is maybe some incentive to vote, maybe like 5,000 runecrafting experience for every poll you vote in. I would vote every single time if that was the case. Number 4 is the great quality of life and user interface updates we have gotten over the years. People forget that back in 2013 when Old School came out, it was a very clunky game to navigate, especially with the interfaces and how some little game features here and there would work. For example, you couldn't even use the middle mouse key to operate the camera. You couldn't right-click and immediately teleport with the glory. In the bank, there was no deposit all or deposit worn items or even bank tabs. You had to go to your options menu to turn on your run energy. You couldn't see the remaining XP to the next level in a skill. You couldn't have loot broadcasting. These things don't really provide an advantage to have them now, but they're just really making the game more convenient and the menus much more easy to operate. And the reason this is all so great is because a lot of this is toggleable, if that's even a word. People even say ToggleScape for how the game is now. So for example, if you don't want to play with the minimap orbs like your HP and your prayer, which were not around when the game came out, you can actually still disable those, and that is true for quite a lot of these features, so you can really customize your gameplay experience to be as new school or old school as you want. There are some things I would still like to see, for example, the ability to resize the UI itself, like the tabs and the minimap and everything. You can kind of do this already with the RuneLite stretch feature or adjusting your screen DPI or resolution, but if we had a customizable UI where you could just resize any aspect of it, that would be so amazing. And last but not least, one thing I like that Jagex has done in certain circumstances is to know when to bypass the pull system for integrity changes. So the pull system is very good, but there are some flaws with it. For example, for PKing updates, you can't really expect 75% support for really anything because 75% of the community are not PKers. So in some circumstances, they've actually gone around this. For example, fixing the Entangle spell to make it freeze for 15 seconds regardless of prayer. That was a great change. It took a while for them to get around to doing it, but it was still very much worth it and really improved PKing in that aspect. I like how they're pretty selective about this. They don't just do this for anything. In fact, sometimes I even think they're pulling too many things. Like, some things are so obvious that it feels like who would even vote no to this anyway, and they pass by quite a bit, but I'd rather them pull too many things rather than resort to too many integrity changes around the polling system. I think it's important for them to be selective about it. So there you go, those are 5 things that I think Jagex has done very well. Do you agree with my list? Would you take anything off this list that I mentioned? Or would you add anything that they've done well that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you want to see a part 2 to this video. I'm sure there's a lot more I could think of. These were just the 5 that really stood out to me that I wanted to talk about. Definitely hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and if you agreed with anything I said. You can sub if you haven't already and hit the bell notification to all to get notifications whenever I upload every Tuesday. You could follow me on Instagram and Twitter down below, and you can join my clan chat in game, AndrewAJT62, and our Discord link down below. And if you want to support the channel even further, you can check out my Patreon page in the end screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.